The house smelled like rosemary and disappointment. Claire Bennett stood in her kitchen, hands pressed flat against the marble countertop, staring at the dinner she had spent 4 hours preparing. The roasted chicken sat perfectly golden in the center of the table. Candlelight flickered across the good china, the plates her mother had given them as a wedding gift 5 years ago. 5 years that felt like 50. Her phone screen glowed in the dimming light. 8:47 p.m. Jason was 3 hours late. She reached for her wine glass, the third one tonight, and took a slow sip. The Merlot tasted expensive. Jason always insisted on expensive things. Expensive wine, expensive house, expensive lies. Her reflection stared back at her from the darkened window above the sink. Chestnut hair pulled into a neat bun, green eyes that used to sparkle. A dress she had bought specifically for tonight, emerald green, because Jason once said it brought out her eyes. That was 2 years ago. She wondered if he would even notice. The front door opened. Claire straightened, smoothed her dress, arranged her face into something resembling a smile. She had become excellent at arranging her face. Jason walked in, phone pressed to his ear, his free hand loosening his tie. He was handsome in that conventional way that turned heads at restaurants. Dark blonde hair perfectly styled. Blue eyes that crinkled when he laughed, though he rarely laughed at home anymore. He held up one finger at her. Wait. She waited. No, tell Henderson we need those numbers by Friday, Jason said into the phone, walking past the dining room without a glance. I don't care if he has to work through the weekend. Everyone's replaceable. The words hung in the air like smoke. Claire turned back to the counter, pulled her phone from her pocket, and opened the calendar. Anniversary dinner, it read. 5 years. The little heart emoji she had added this morning mocked her now. Behind her, Jason's voice droned on. Something about quarterly projections, regional targets, corporate restructuring. Words that meant nothing and everything. She looked at the chicken again. The skin had started to wrinkle, fat congealing around the edges. The roasted vegetables had gone soft. The sauce she had made from scratch, following his mother's recipe exactly, had developed a film across the top. Babe, I'm starving. What's for dinner? Claire turned. Jason had finally ended his call, was shrugging off his jacket, draping it over the back of the couch instead of hanging it in the closet. Another small thing. They add up, these small things, until they became mountains. I made your favorite, she said. Her voice sounded steady. Good. Herb roasted chicken, the way your mother taught me. Jason glanced at the dining room, finally seeming to notice the candles, the good china, the effort. Something flickered across his face. Not quite guilt, not quite anything. That's great, he said, pulling his phone out again. But I grabbed something at the office. Henderson ordered in, and I couldn't be rude. The screen of his phone lit up his face in the dim hallway. Claire watched his eyes move, reading something. His mouth curved slightly. Not quite a smile, something else. You could have called, she said quietly. It was last minute. He was texting now, thumbs moving quickly. You know how it is. She did know. She knew exactly how it was. Jason? Her voice came out firmer than intended. Do you know what today is? His fingers paused. His eyes lifted from the screen, met hers. She watched him calculate, watched the realization hit, watched him decide how to play this. Of course I do. He crossed to her, leaned down, pressed a kiss to her forehead. Mechanical, practiced. Happy anniversary, babe. 5 years. His phone buzzed in his hand. His eyes dropped immediately. I need to take this, he said, already turning away. It's Henderson again. Guys falling apart without proper supervision. He walked toward his home office, phone pressed to his ear again, and closed the door. Claire stood alone in the kitchen. The candles had burned down halfway. Wax dripped onto the tablecloth, small white pools that would probably stain. She should blow them out. She should put away the food. She should do a lot of things. Instead, she walked to the dining room, picked up her wine glass, and drained it. Her purse sat on the counter near the refrigerator. She reached for it, pulled out her own phone, and scrolled through her photos. There she was, 24 years old, in a white dress, smiling like she had won the lottery. Jason beside her, arm around her waist, looking at the camera instead of at her. She swiped. Birthday dinner 2 years ago. She was blowing out candles. Jason was checking his phone. Swipe. Christmas morning last year. She was holding up a generic gift card. Jason was already looking at his laptop. Swipe. Valentine's Day, Easter, 4th of July. A catalog of moments that told the same story in different lighting. Her hand moved without conscious thought, reaching for the drawer where Jason always left his iPad when he came home. He was careless with it, confident in his privacy, confident she would never look. The screen woke at her touch. No password. He had disabled it months ago, said he was tired of forgetting the code. His Messages app sat in the dock at the bottom. Claire's finger hovered over it. This was a line. Once crossed, there was no going back. She could put the iPad down, go to bed, pretend this was just another disappointing anniversary in a string of disappointing days. She tapped the icon. The most recent conversation filled the screen. Contact name, V. The preview showed a photo. She opened it. Vivian Monroe, Jason's coworker, platinum blonde hair, full lips, designer dress, posing in what looked like a hotel bathroom. The message below it read, "Missing you already. Tonight was amazing." The timestamp, 6:34 p.m., 2 hours ago. Claire's hand stayed perfectly steady as she scrolled up. Months of messages, hundreds of them. 8 months, she calculated, watching the dates climb backward. 8 months of late nights and business trips and distracted glances. "You're so much more interesting than her," one message from Jason read. "She's content being boring. You actually live." "When are you going to tell her?" Vivian had written back. "Soon. Need to handle some financial things first. The prenup's airtight, but I want to be smart about this." Claire took a screenshot. Then another. Then another. Her fingers moved mechanically, capturing everything, backing up to cloud storage, forwarding copies to her personal email. The office door opened. She closed the messages, set the iPad back exactly where she had found it, and reached for the wine bottle with the same smooth motion. Jason emerged, running a hand through his hair. "Crisis averted," he said. "Henderson's going to pull it together after all." "That's good," Claire said. She poured herself another glass, took a sip, met his eyes over the rim. "I'm glad you could help him." Something in her tone made him pause. He looked at her more closely, seemed to really see her for the first time that evening. "You okay?" he asked. "Perfect." She set down the glass. "Just tired. I think I'll go to bed." "Yeah, okay." He was already reaching for his phone again. "I've got a few more emails to handle anyway." Claire walked past him, climbed the stairs to their bedroom, closed the door behind her. She sat on the edge of the bed, pulled out her phone and opened her contacts. Nina Reeves, best friend since college, corporate lawyer, fierce protector, the sister she never had. Claire's fingers moved across the screen. "I need a lawyer." She hit send. Then she opened her photos, looked at her wedding picture one more time, and felt absolutely nothing. The woman in that photograph was a stranger wearing her face. Downstairs, she heard Jason laugh at something on his phone. The sound drifted up through the vents, hollow and distant. Claire deleted her tears before they could fall, lay back on the bed, and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tonight, she just needed to breathe. The law office smelled like leather and possibility. Claire sat in a chair that probably cost more than her first car, hands folded in her lap, watching Mina pace behind the mahogany desk. Her best friend had always been intense, all sharp edges and sharper mind, but this morning, she looked ready to commit murder. 8 months, Nina said for the 3rd time. 8 months with that walking cliché, and he had the audacity to blame you for being boring. "Her name is Vivian Monroe." Claire's voice came out steadier than she felt. "She works in his department, accounting supervisor." Nina stopped pacing, turned to face her. "You researched her?" "I researched everything." Claire pulled a folder from her bag, set it on the desk. Screenshots of every message, credit card statements showing charges at hotels on nights he claimed to be working late, receipts for jewelry I never received, restaurant reservations for 2 at places we've never been together. Nina opened the folder, flipped through the pages. Her amber eyes grew darker with each turn. This is thorough. I had a long night. Claire, Nina sat down, reached across the desk, covered Claire's hand with her own. I'm proud of you. And I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Claire met her eyes. Be useful. What are my options? The door opened before Nina could answer. A woman in her 50s entered, silver hair pulled back in a neat twist, wearing a suit that radiated competence. Nina stood immediately. Claire Bennett, this is Patricia Holbrook, best divorce attorney in the state. Patricia extended her hand. Her grip was firm, professional, assessing. Ms. Bennett, Nina's told me about your situation. I've reviewed the documentation you sent over this morning. They had sent documentation this morning? Claire barely remembered doing it, operating on autopilot and anger and 3 hours of sleep. Patricia sat, opened her own folder, pulled out papers Claire recognized. Let's discuss the prenup you signed 5 years ago. Claire's stomach tightened. The prenup. She remembered that day, remembered Jason's father insisting, his mother watching with those cold eyes that had never warmed to her. Just a formality, Jason had said, protects both of us. She had been 24 and in love and stupid. It's not favorable, Patricia said, which was lawyer speak for devastating. In the event of divorce, you would receive a fixed settlement of $50,000, regardless of marriage duration or circumstances. The house remains his, as do all joint assets acquired during the marriage. You would keep only items you brought into the marriage and gifts specifically given to you. So, nothing, Claire said quietly. I get nothing. Not quite nothing. Patricia's eyes sharpened. This prenup was written assuming both parties maintained clean hands. Infidelity, properly documented, can void certain provisions. Hope flickered. The messages are a start, but judges have seen messages before. What we need is proof of financial infidelity. Patricia leaned forward. Nina mentioned you noticed irregularities in your joint accounts. Claire nodded slowly. Money moving, transfers to accounts I don't recognize. I started tracking it 3 months ago when I noticed our balance was lower than it should be. 3 months ago? Nina's eyebrows rose. You've suspected for 3 months? I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know what. Claire pulled out her phone, opened her banking app, turned it so both women could see. He's been moving money systematically, small amounts, never enough to trigger alerts, but it adds up. Nearly $40,000 in the last 6 months. Patricia's expression shifted into something predatory. Where's it going? I don't know yet. The transfers go to an account at a different bank. I only have access to our joint accounts. But you have the account numbers? Patricia was already making notes. And dates and amounts. That's enough to start with. I can file for discovery, forced disclosure of all financial records. He'll know I'm planning to leave. Claire's hands tightened in her lap. The moment you file anything, he'll know. Is that a problem? Claire thought about Jason's face last night, the casual dismissal, the easy lies. She thought about Vivian's message. She thought about 5 years of small moments that built into this enormous, crushing weight. No, she said, it's not a problem. Nina was watching her with something like awe. When did you become this person? When I realized being nice wasn't the same as being respected. Claire stood, walked to the window over the city. Somewhere out there, Jason was probably at his desk, texting Vivian, planning his future that didn't include her. I need to ask you something, Nina. Do you remember Owen Fitzgerald? The name landed between them like a stone in still water. Nina's face shifted, memory clicking into place. From university? The guy who came in second to you at the national marketing competition? That's him. Claire, he's a billionaire now. Fitzgerald Innovations, tech sector. I handled a contract dispute for one of his suppliers last year. Nina's eyes narrow. Why are you asking about Owen Fitzgerald? Claire turned from the window. Because I saw him on a Forbes cover yesterday. Because his company is looking for marketing consultants. Because I need a job, and I used to be good at what I do. Used to be? Patricia's voice was sharp. You won a national competition. That was 7 years ago, before Jason convinced me I didn't need to work, before I became a housewife in a house that was never really mine. Claire's jaw tightened. I want to work again. I want my own money, my own career, my own life. Nina stood, crossed to her, gripped her shoulders. Then take it back. I don't even know if he'd remember me. Make him remember. Nina's smile was fierce. You're Claire Bennett. You're brilliant and strategic, and you've been playing small because some mediocre man couldn't handle your light. Stop playing small. Patricia closed her folder. I'll file for a private investigator. Document everything. Financial records, the affair, all of it. Build an airtight case. But Miss Bennett, I need you to understand something. Claire turned to face her. This will get ugly, Patricia continued. Men like your husband don't like losing, especially when they think they hold all the cards. He will fight. He will try to intimidate you. He will make promises he won't keep and threats he might. Can you handle that? Claire thought about the woman in the wedding photo, the stranger wearing her face. She thought about who she used to be, before Jason, before the slow erosion of self. I can handle it, she said. What I can't handle is one more year of this. Patricia nodded, satisfied. Then let's begin. 2 hours later, Claire sat in a coffee shop, 3 blocks from the law office, laptop open, staring at Fitzgerald Innovations' website. Owen's face looked out from the About Us page, older than she remembered, but unmistakably him. Dark hair with hints of silver at the temples, gray eyes that had always seemed to see too much. He had been intense even at 22, driven in a way that made everyone else look lazy. She had beaten him by 3 points in that competition. He had congratulated her, genuinely, asked intelligent questions about her strategy, and told her she was going to change the industry. Then life happened. She graduated, met Jason at a mutual friends party, fell into a relationship that felt easy after years of academic pressure. Owen had moved to Silicon Valley, started his company, became the kind of success story people wrote articles about. And Claire had become someone who cooked elaborate dinners for a man who couldn't be bothered to show up. Her phone buzzed. Jason. Where are you? Tried calling the house. She stared at the message, watched the 3 dots appear and disappear as he typed something else, deleted it, typed again. Finally, everything okay? Claire's fingers hovered over the keyboard. She could tell him where she was. She could go home, make lunch, pretend this morning never happened. Instead, she opened a new browser tab and navigated to Fitzgerald Innovations' career page. Her phone buzzed again. Claire? She turned it face down on the table and started updating her resume. The ballroom glittered like a constellation had fallen to earth. Claire stood near the entrance, smoothing down the simple black dress she had bought that afternoon. Not the emerald one from the failed anniversary dinner. That one was in a donation bag in her trunk, along with other remnants of who she used to try to be. This dress was hers. Clean lines, modest neckline, elegant without trying too hard. The kind of dress a woman wore when she was done performing. The charity gala hummed with conversation and clinking glasses. Tech executives mingled with philanthropists, everyone dressed in their finest, everyone networking with surgical precision. Claire had come for work, her marketing firm's client was a sponsor, but she had chosen this specific event for a different reason entirely. Owen Fitzgerald was the keynote speaker. She accepted a champagne flute from a passing waiter, took a small sip, and scanned the room. Her left hand felt naked without the wedding ring she had stopped wearing 3 days ago. Jason had noticed that morning, his face going tight, but he had said nothing. They were both playing a game now, neither willing to show their cards first. The lights dimmed slightly. A woman in a red dress took the stage, tapping the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight for the Children's Innovation Fund. We're honored to introduce our keynote speaker, founder and CEO of Fitzgerald Innovations, Owen Fitzgerald. Applause rippled through the crowd. He walked onto the stage, and Claire's breath caught. 7 years had sharpened him. The boyish intensity she remembered had calcified into something more commanding. He wore his tailored suit like armor, moved with the confidence of someone who had built an empire from nothing and knew exactly what he was worth. But when he smiled at the audience, she saw traces of the 22-year-old who had congratulated her on her competition win with genuine admiration. I'm going to tell you about failure, Owen began, his voice carrying easily across the ballroom. Specifically, my first spectacular failure. The crowd leaned in. When I started Fitzgerald Innovations, I thought I had everything figured out. I had the technology, the business plan, the investors. What I didn't have was the ability to communicate why anyone should care. He paused, let the words settle. I was 3 months from bankruptcy when I remembered something a colleague told me in university. She said that innovation without communication is just noise. She was right. I hired a proper marketing team, learned to tell a story instead of just listing features, and everything changed. Claire's chest tightened. She remembered that conversation, remembered sitting in the university library at 2 in the morning, reviewing his competition presentation, telling him his technology was brilliant, but his pitch was killing it. That lesson saved my company, Owen continued. Understanding that the best idea in the world means nothing if you can't make people care about it. That's why I'm passionate about the Children's Innovation Fund, because somewhere out there is a kid with a brilliant idea and no idea how to share it. That kid deserves a chance. The applause was thunderous. Claire clapped too, champagne glass balanced carefully in her other hand, watching as Owen fielded a few questions from the audience. He was good at this, comfortable in his own skin in a way that seemed almost foreign to her now. The formal portion ended, the crowd dispersed. Claire moved toward the bar, intending to get water, clear her head, decide if approaching him was brilliant or insane. The key is diversification, a voice said behind her. Male, confident, familiar. You can't rely on a single revenue stream in this market. She turned. Owen stood 3 feet away, talking to a silver-haired man in an expensive suit, but his eyes had locked on Claire's face, recognition sparking like a match strike. The silver-haired man said something else, but Owen's attention had fractured. He nodded absently, offered some polite response, and the man drifted away, looking slightly miffed. Owen crossed the space between them in 4 strides. Claire Bennett. Her name in his mouth sounded like a question and an answer at once. It's really you. Hello, Owen. She extended her hand, professional, appropriate. Congratulations on your success, and the speech was excellent. He shook her hand, held it a beat longer than necessary. You're the last person I expected to see tonight. The last person, and somehow the only person I was hoping to see. Heat crept up her neck. That's quite a line. It's not a line if it's true. His gray eyes searched her face. How long has it been? 6 years? 7, since graduation. 7 years. He shook his head. You disappeared. I tried to keep in touch. She had disappeared. Into Jason, into the marriage, into the slow erasure of self. Life happened. I got married, got busy. His eyes dropped to her left hand, registered the absence of a ring, flicked back to her face. He said nothing, but she saw the calculation, the careful neutrality that came with not wanting to assume. You mentioned marketing teams in your speech, Claire said, steering into safer waters. Are you hiring? Something shifted in his expression, interest sharpened into focus. Always looking for talent. Why? Are you in the market? I might be. I've been out of the industry for a while, but I'm looking to get back in. Consulting, primarily. A waiter passed with a tray of hors d'oeuvres. Owen waved him off, his attention never leaving Claire. You won the national competition. Beat me by 3 points, if I remember correctly. You remember correctly. I remember everything about that competition, including the advice you gave me at 2 in the morning when I was ready to throw my entire presentation in the trash. He leaned slightly closer, and she caught the scent of expensive cologne and ambition. You told me innovation without communication is just noise. I quoted you tonight, should have given you credit. I didn't patent the phrase. Still, you changed the trajectory of my entire company with one conversation. I'd say that deserves attribution. He pulled a card from his inner pocket, held it between 2 fingers. This has my direct line, not the assistant, not the main office, me. Call tomorrow. We'll talk about what consulting for Fitzgerald Innovations might look like. Claire took the card, felt the weight of it. Heavy stock, embossed lettering. The kind of card that opened doors. I'm handling some personal matters right now. My situation is complicated. Most interesting situations are. Owen's expression remained neutral, but his eyes were kind. The offer stands regardless of complications. Your talent doesn't expire because life got messy. Behind them, someone called Owen's name. A group of investors, probably, wanting FaceTime with the visionary CEO. He glanced over his shoulder, jaw tightening slightly. "I should let you go," Claire said. "Thank you for this." "Claire." He turned back to her. "Whatever you're dealing with, whatever the complications are, you deserve better than being out of the industry you were born for. You were the best in our class. I'm guessing you still are." Then he was gone, swept up by the crowd, shaking hands and smiling that professional smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Claire stood alone near the bar, his card in her hand, feeling like she had just stepped onto a ledge and wasn't sure if she was about to fall or fly. Her phone buzzed. Jason. "Where are you? It's 10 p.m. She looked at the message, looked at Owen across the ballroom, looked at her reflection in the bar mirror. The woman looking back at her had her shoulders squared, her chin lifted, her eyes clear. She typed back, "Networking event for work. Don't wait up." Another buzz, immediate. "What work? You don't work." Claire's thumb hovered over the keyboard. 6 months ago, that message would have made her apologize. 3 months ago, it would have made her defensive. Last week, it would have made her sad. Tonight, it made her angry. "Not yet," she typed back. "That's changing." She silenced her phone, dropped it in her purse, and turned back toward the ballroom. Owen was talking to a group of people near the stage, animated, engaged. As if sensing her gaze, he looked up, met her eyes across the crowded room, and smiled. Not the professional smile, the real one. Claire smiled back, slipped his card into her purse next to her silenced phone, and walked toward the exit. Tomorrow, she would call. Tomorrow, she would take the first step toward reclaiming the person she used to be. Tonight, she drove home to a house that had never been hers, climbed into a bed she no longer shared with her husband, and slept better than she had in years. The lobby of Fitzgerald Innovations looked like the future had arrived early. Claire stood in the center of polished concrete and floor-to-ceiling windows, feeling simultaneously out of place and exactly where she belonged. Her portfolio case hung from her shoulder, containing 7 years of dormant expertise she was about to resurrect. A woman in her 30s approached, tablet in hand, smile professionally warm. "Miss Bennett, I'm Rebecca, Mr. Fitzgerald's executive assistant. He's finishing a call, but he asked me to get you settled in the conference room." Claire followed her through security, past walls displaying patents and awards, into an elevator with glass sides that made her stomach drop as they ascended. The city spread below them, growing smaller with each floor. "Owen speaks highly of you," Rebecca said, eyes on her tablet. "Says you're the reason he learned to communicate effectively." "That's generous. I made one suggestion 7 years ago." One good suggestion at the right time can change everything. The elevator doors opened onto the 20th floor. He's been looking forward to this meeting all week. The conference room overlooked the harbor. Sunlight poured through the windows, illuminating a table that could seat 20 but was set for 2. Coffee, water, a bowl of fruit that looked almost too perfect to eat. Claire set down her portfolio, moved to the window. From here, the city looked manageable, reduced to geometry and light. She wondered if that's how Owen saw everything now, from a height that made problems look smaller. The door opened. Owen entered, jacket off, sleeves rolled to his elbows, looking less like a Forbes cover and more like the driven student she remembered. His gray eyes found hers immediately, and his smile was genuine. "Claire, thank you for coming." He crossed to her, shook her hand. His grip was firm, warm, brief, professional. "Coffee? Please." He poured for both of them, remembered she took it black, which meant he had paid attention at some university function 7 years ago when her drink order was the least important thing happening. They sat across from each other. Owen leaned back, studied her with that same intense focus she remembered. "Tell me what you've been doing," he said. 7 years is a long time. Claire wrapped both hands around her coffee mug. "Married, managed a household, lost myself, found myself again, in that order." His eyebrows rose slightly. "That's honest. I'm too tired to be anything else." She met his eyes. "I was good at marketing, won competitions, had offers from 3 major firms. Then I met someone who made me feel like those accomplishments were nice hobbies, not real careers. I believed him for longer than I should have. And now? Now I'm remembering who I was before I started shrinking to fit someone else's expectations. She pulled her portfolio from her bag, slid it across the table. This is everything I did in university: campaign strategies, market analysis, the competition presentation that beat yours. I know it's old, but it's all I have. Owen opened the portfolio, flipped through pages slowly. His expression remained neutral, but she saw his fingers pause on certain slides, his eyes narrowing at specific strategies. "This campaign structure," he said, tapping a page, "the demographic targeting, this is sophisticated." It was a campus product launch, theoretical. The theory is sound, better than sound. He looked up. "You really thought you needed to convince me you're talented? I've been out of the industry for 5 years. Technology changes, platforms evolve. I'm not sure I'm current enough to be useful. Platforms are tools. Strategy is fundamental." Owen closed the portfolio, pushed it back toward her. "I don't need to see your university work, Claire. I know what you're capable of. What I need to know is if you're ready to do this." "I'm ready." "Even with personal complications?" She thought about Jason's face that morning, the tightness around his mouth when she told him she had a meeting, the way he had asked where, with whom, why now, the way his questions felt like accusations. "Especially with personal complications," she said. Owen nodded slowly, decision crystallizing behind his eyes. "We're launching a new platform in 6 months, enterprise-level project management software, revolutionary interface, game-changing integration capabilities, and absolutely no market presence because our current marketing team thinks features sell themselves. Features never sell themselves." "Exactly. I need someone who understands that we're not selling software, we're selling time, efficiency, peace of mind. I need someone who can build a campaign that makes enterprise clients feel something." He leaned forward. "Can you do that?" Claire felt something ignite in her chest, the same feeling she used to get before big presentations, before she learned to make herself smaller. "Yes," she said, "but I need to see the product first, understand the technology, talk to your development team." "Done. I'll set up meetings for this week." "I need access to your current market research and competitor analysis. Rebecca will have it sent over today. And I need 3 weeks to develop a preliminary strategy before presenting to your executive team." Owen's smile grew. "Anything else?" "Creative control. If I'm building this campaign, I need authority to make decisions without running everything through committee approval. That's a lot of trust to ask for. You said I was the best in our class. Either you meant it, or you were being polite." He laughed, the sound surprising them both. "I wasn't being polite. Okay, Miss Bennett, 3 weeks, creative control, full access. I'll have Rebecca draw up a consulting contract. What's your rate?" Claire's mind went blank. Rate? She had no idea what consultants charged. She had no frame of reference for her own value. Owen watched her hesitate, understanding dawning. "How about this? I'll offer you what I'd pay any senior marketing consultant with your credentials. If you think it's unfair, we negotiate. Deal?" "Deal." He named a figure that made her coffee mug pause halfway to her lips. "That's per month," he added, "for the duration of the campaign development. If the executive team approves your strategy and we move to implementation, we'll discuss a permanent position. Per month." The number he had said was more than Jason gave her for household expenses in 6 months. "That's extremely generous," she managed. "That's market rate for someone who can do what you do." Owen Studd extended his hand. "Welcome to Fitzgerald Innovations, Claire." She stood, shook his hand, felt the world tilt slightly on its axis. The door burst open. A man in his 40s rushed in, face flushed, eyes wild. "Owen, we have a situation. Henderson's threatening to pull out of the merger unless we renegotiate terms, and the board is meeting in 20 minutes. Owen's expression shifted from warm to calculating in a heartbeat. "Tell Henderson I'll call him in 10 minutes. Get the board on standby." The man disappeared as quickly as he had arrived. "Welcome to chaos," Owen said dryly. He grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair, shrugged it on. "Rebecca will handle your onboarding. I'm sorry to cut this short. Go, handle your emergency." He paused at the door, looked back at her. "Claire, I'm glad you called."
Then he was gone, leaving her alone in the conference room with a contract offer that felt like a lifeline and a view that made the world look conquerable. Her phone buzzed. "Jason, we need to talk when you get home." She stared at the message, then at the city below, then at her reflection in the window. The woman looking back at her was standing straighter, breathing deeper, taking up more space. Claire typed back, "I'll be late, starting a new project." His response came immediately. "What project? With whom?" She turned off her phone without answering.
And went to find Rebecca. 2 hours later, contract signed, onboarding complete, Claire sat in her car in the parking garage and called Nina. "I got the job," she said when Nina answered. "Consulting contract, Fitzgerald Innovations." Nina's whoop of joy echoed through the car speakers. "Claire Bennett, you magnificent human. How much?" Claire told her. Silence. "Nina, I'm just processing the fact that you're about to make more in 1 month than Jason gives you in half a year." I had the same reaction. "Does he know yet?" Claire thought about the unanswered messages on her phone. "He knows something's happening, he just doesn't know what." "Good, let him wonder." Nina's voice softened. "How do you feel?" Claire watched other people walk to their cars, carrying laptops and coffee cups, living their professional lives. Normal people doing normal things. "Terrified," she admitted, "and alive. Really, properly alive for the first time in years. That's my girl. Come over tonight, we'll celebrate properly." Claire agreed, ended the call, and sat in the silence of her car. Her phone screen showed 3 more messages from Jason, each one more demanding than the last. She started the engine and drove toward Nina's apartment instead of home. Jason could wait. For 5 years, Claire had waited for him to notice her, appreciate her, choose her, waited through late nights and forgotten anniversaries and casual dismissals. Now it was his turn to wait. She merged onto the highway, windows down, radio up, and smiled at her reflection in the rearview mirror. The woman smiling back looked like someone worth knowing. The private investigator's office smelled like stale coffee and secrets. Claire sat across from a man who introduced himself simply as Torres, watching him lay out photographs on the desk between them like he was dealing cards. Each image told the same story in different lighting. Jason and Vivian entering a hotel, Jason and Vivian at a restaurant, Jason and Vivian in a parking garage, his hand on her lower back, her head thrown back in laughter. 8 months, like you suspected, Torres said, his voice professionally neutral. But there's more. He slid a folder across the desk. Claire opened it, scanned the financial documents inside, felt her stomach drop. "Your husband's been embezzling from his company," Torres continued. "Small amounts, carefully hidden, funneled through fake vendor accounts. His girlfriend's been helping. She's in accounting, has access to approvals." Claire's hands tightened on the folder. "How much?" "Over 200,000 in the last 18 months. They've been planning this for a while, setting up offshore accounts, creating paper trails that point to another employee." He tapped one of the documents. "Guy named Philip Warren, works in the same department, completely innocent, about to take the fall." "They're framing someone." Claire's voice came out flat. She looked at Torres. "You're sure about this?" "I don't bring accusations without evidence. Everything's in that folder. Bank records, email trails, documentation showing how they manipulated the system." He leaned back in his chair. "Question is, what do you want to do about it?" Claire stared at the photographs, at Jason's face in each one. He looked happy, genuinely happy, in a way she hadn't seen directed at her in years. "If I report this, he goes to jail. Probably. Her too. And Philip Warren, the innocent man, he's protected." "He is." Claire closed the folder, pressed her palms flat against it. Her wedding ring, which she still wore for appearance's sake, caught the fluorescent light. She thought about the vows they had made, for better or worse, in sickness and health. Nowhere in those vows had she promised to be complicit in destroying an innocent person's life. "I need to think about this," she said. Torres nodded. "Take the folder, make copies. But, Miss Bennett, you should know that if this keeps going, Warren will be arrested within the month. They're moving faster now, getting bolder." Claire left his office with the folder tucked under her arm, walked to her car, and sat in the driver's seat without starting the engine. Her phone rang. Owen.
Claire, where are you? The development team's waiting. She had completely forgotten the product demonstration, scheduled for 2 hours ago. I'm sorry, something came up. I can be there in 20 minutes. Is everything okay? His voice shifted from professional to concerned. You sound off. I'm fine, just dealing with personal matters. I'll explain when I get there. Claire, he paused. Whatever you're dealing with, if you need time, take it. The presentation can wait. No, work helps, keeps me focused. She started the engine. 20 minutes. I'll have coffee ready. She drove to Fitzgerald Innovations on autopilot, the folder on the passenger seat like a loaded weapon. Every stoplight gave her time to think, to calculate, to weigh consequences. Reporting Jason meant exposing him, protecting a stranger, doing the right thing. It also meant accelerating the divorce, forcing confrontation, stepping fully into the war she had been trying to wage strategically. The building's parking garage welcomed her like a sanctuary. She grabbed the folder, locked it in her trunk, and composed her face into something professional. Owen met her at the elevator, 2 coffee cups in hand, concern written across his features. You look exhausted, he said, handing her a cup. Long morning. Want to talk about it? Want to show me this revolutionary software instead? He studied her for a moment, reading the deflection, choosing not to push. Conference room 3. The team's excited to meet you. The presentation lasted 2 hours. Claire forced herself to focus, to ask questions, to take notes. The software was impressive, genuinely innovative, exactly the kind of product that could dominate the market with proper positioning. She felt pieces of a campaign strategy forming in her mind, structure emerging from chaos. When the development team finally left, she and Owen remained alone in the conference room. He closed his laptop, turned to face her fully. Now, talk, he said. Something's wrong. Claire set down her pen, looked at him, really looked at him. At 34, he carried the weight of a billion-dollar company with remarkable grace. But his eyes held something else, something that looked like understanding. Can I ask you something personal? She said. Yes. Your biography mentions your father lost everything to a dishonest business partner. That's why you started your company, to rebuild. Owen's jaw tightened slightly. That's the sanest.
What's the real version? He was quiet for a long moment, fingers drumming against the table. My father's partner wasn't just dishonest, he was family. My uncle. He embezzled for 3 years, framed my father for it, walked away clean while my dad went to prison. Owen met her eyes. I was 16, watched my father get convicted for crimes he didn't commit because someone he trusted destroyed him. Claire's chest constricted. I'm sorry. Don't be. It taught me something valuable, that loyalty without accountability is dangerous, that protecting people who do wrong things makes you complicit. He leaned forward. Why are you asking? She told him. Not everything, but enough. About the investigation, the embezzlement, the innocent man about to be destroyed. Your husband's stealing from his company and framing someone else, Owen said when she finished. And you're struggling with whether to report it? Reporting him means my divorce gets uglier, means he'll know I'm the one who exposed him, means war. And not reporting him means an innocent man goes to prison? Claire closed her eyes. Yes, Claire, look at me. Protecting others from people who abuse trust isn't vindictiveness, Owen said quietly. It's justice. What your husband's doing, it's not just stealing money. It's stealing someone's future, their freedom, their life. You know what you need to do. I know. I just hate that doing the right thing makes me feel like I'm being vengeful. That's because you're a good person who's been conditioned to put others first, even when they're destroying you. Owen's voice was firm. You're not being vengeful. You're being brave. Claire pulled out her phone, stared at it. One call to Jason's company, one anonymous tip. That's all it would take. Her hands trembled. Owen reached across the table, covered her hand with his. The gesture was brief, supportive, entirely appropriate. You don't have to do this alone, he said. Whatever happens next, you have people in your corner. Claire made the call. She spoke to Jason's company's ethics hotline, provided the account numbers, explained about Philip Warren, gave them everything Torres had found.
The woman on the other end promised a full investigation. When she hung up, her hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold the phone. I just destroyed my husband's life. No, he destroyed his own life. You just stopped letting him destroy someone else's. Owen stood, moved to the coffee maker, poured her a fresh cup, even though her previous one sat untouched. What happens now? Now his company investigates, probably suspends him, eventually prosecutes. Claire accepted the coffee, wrapped both hands around the warmth. And he'll know it was me. He'll know I'm the only one who could have found this. Will he come after you? Probably. Does he know where you're working? The question hung between them. Claire thought about Jason's messages, his increasing irritation about her new job, his demands to know details she had carefully avoided sharing. Not specifically, just that I'm consulting. Keep it that way. Owen pulled out his phone. I'm adding you to building security. If he shows up here, he doesn't get past the lobby. Owen, that's not necessary. It's absolutely necessary. I've built companies with people who were running from bad situations before. Protecting my team isn't optional. He typed something into his phone. Done. Security has your photo and his. He shows up, they call you first, then me. Claire felt something tight in her chest loosen slightly. Thank you. Don't thank me for basic human decency. Her phone exploded with messages, all from Jason. The company had moved faster than she expected. They suspended me, the first message read. Investigation for embezzlement. This is insane. Then, someone reported false information. Then, I know this was you. Claire's coffee cup rattled against the saucer as she set it down. Owen glanced at her phone screen, read the messages upside down. He's panicking. He's dangerous when he panics. Then don't go home tonight. She looked at him sharply. What? Stay with a friend, your lawyer, someone. Anywhere but a house you share with someone who's been backed into a corner. Owen's expression was serious. I've seen how this plays out. He'll escalate. Claire thought about the house, the bedroom she had moved into separately, the home that never felt like hers. She thought about Jason's face when he was angry, the way his voice got quiet right before he got loud. She called Nina. I need a place to stay tonight, she said when her friend answered. Maybe for a few nights. Always. What happened? I'll explain when I get there. Claire gathered her things, tucked her laptop into her bag. Owen walked her to the elevator. Campaign strategy meeting next week, he said, unless you need more time. Work is good, keeps me grounded. The elevator doors opened. Claire stepped inside, turned to face him. Owen, why are you doing this? Going out of your way to help me? He was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. Because 7 years ago, someone told me my pitch was brilliant, but my delivery was killing it. She spent 3 hours helping me restructure everything, missed her own study group, asked for nothing in return. His gray eyes held hers. Because brilliance deserves protection, not punishment. The elevator doors closed before she could respond. The lawyer's office felt different this time, heavier, final. Claire sat in the same chair she had occupied weeks ago, but everything had changed. She had changed. Patricia Holbrook sat across from her, papers arranged in neat stacks, expression professionally neutral in a way that suggested what came next would be anything but neutral. Jason's lawyer contacted us this morning, Patricia said. He wants to expedite the divorce, serve papers immediately. Nina, seated beside Claire, snorted. Let me guess, he thinks he's controlling the narrative. He thinks he's protecting his assets before the criminal investigation concludes. Patricia slid a document across the desk. These are his proposed terms. Claire read through them slowly. The house went to Jason. The cars, except for her old sedan. The furniture, the artwork, the joint savings. She would receive the prenup stipulated $50,000 and 30 days to vacate. He's trying to divorce me before he's arrested, Claire said quietly. Wants to make sure I can't claim anything after his assets are seized. Exactly. But here's where it gets interesting. Patricia produced another folder, this one thicker. Remember the
offshore accounts Torres found? The money your husband stole? Turns out some of it was funneled through joint accounts with your name on them. Claire's blood went cold. He used our joint accounts? For exactly this reason. If things went wrong, he could claim you were complicit. muddy the waters, make you look equally guilty. Patricia's expression hardened. It's a common tactic. Abusers love making their victims look like co-conspirators. But I didn't know. I had no access to those transactions. We can prove that. Bank records show all transfers were initiated from Jason's IP address, his devices. You're not implicated. But he's going to try. Patricia leaned forward, which is why we're not accepting these terms. We're filing our own petition, and we're asking for everything. Everything? Nina grinned. Everything legitimate. The house was purchased during the marriage, joint asset. The cars, furniture, investments. The prenup's nullified by his criminal activity and infidelity. You're entitled to half of all marital assets acquired legally. And we're filing for damages, Patricia added. Emotional distress, fraud, financial abuse. We're also requesting that he cover all legal fees. Claire stared at the papers in her hands. Jason's terms, laying out the future he had planned. The future where he walked away with everything and she disappeared into nothing. She thought about the woman in the wedding photo, the stranger who had signed away her power, her voice, herself. File it, she said, all of it. Patricia smiled, not the professional smile, the real one. I was hoping you'd say that. I'll have the papers drawn up by end of day. We serve him tomorrow. He's going to lose his mind, Claire said. Let him. He's already suspended from work, under criminal investigation, and about to be served with divorce papers that demand accountability. Nina squeezed Claire's hand. He's been backing you into corners for years. Time he knows what it feels like. They left the law office an hour later, documents signed, strategy established. Claire's phone had been mercifully quiet since she blocked Jason's number, but she knew the silence wouldn't last. Lunch? Nina asked. My treat. We're celebrating you becoming a whole person again. I have a presentation at Fitzgerald this afternoon, campaign strategy preliminary review. Nina's eyebrows rose. You finished it already? That was supposed to take 3 weeks. Work helps me think, keeps my mind busy. Claire pulled out her phone, checked the time. I have 2 hours. Lunch sounds perfect. They chose a small cafe near Nina's office, sat outside despite the autumn chill. Claire ordered soup she didn't taste, bread she barely touched. Her mind was already at Fitzgerald, running through her presentation, anticipating questions. You're different, Nina said, watching her. Since you started working again, you sit differently. I sit differently? You take up space. You used to make yourself smaller, like you were apologizing for existing. Now you just exist. Nina smiled. It's good to see. Claire thought about the conference rooms at Fitzgerald, the way she had stood at the head of the table yesterday, presenting to the development team, the way they had listened, asked questions, implemented her suggestions, the way Owen had watched her with something like pride. I forgot what it felt like, she admitted, to be good at something, to have people value my input instead of dismissing it. Jason was a cancer. You're in remission. Nina checked her own phone. Speaking of Owen Fitzgerald, are we acknowledging the situation there? There's no situation. Claire, the man gave you creative control of a major campaign, added you to building security, and according to office gossip I've definitely been following, personally walked you to your car every evening this week. Heat crept up Claire's neck. He's being professional, supportive. He's being interested. There's a difference. Nina's expression softened. Would that be so terrible? After everything with Jason, would it be so wrong to have someone who actually sees you? I'm not divorced yet. I'm not ready. I don't even know who I am outside of being Jason's wife. Then figure it out. Take your time. But don't pretend you haven't noticed the way that man looks at you. Claire had noticed. She would have to be blind not to notice. The way Owen's attention focused completely when she spoke, the way he remembered details, asked follow-up questions about things she had mentioned days ago. The way his professional distance sometimes slipped, revealing something warmer underneath. But noticing and acting were different things. I need to focus on myself right now, Claire said. On building my career back, handling the divorce, remembering who Claire Bennett is when she's not performing for someone else. Fair enough. Nina raised her water glass.
to Claire Bennett, who's about to destroy her first major presentation and her terrible husband's life. In that order. Claire clinked her glass against Nina's. In that order. 2 hours later, she stood in Conference Room A at Fitzgerald Innovations, laptop connected to the projector, facing Owen and his 5-member executive team. Her hands didn't shake, her voice didn't waver. She had spent 5 years making herself smaller, quieter, less. She was done with less. The problem with how you've been marketing your products, she began, is that you're selling features to people who want solutions. Your competitors do the same thing. Specifications, integration capabilities, technical superiority. Everyone sounds identical. She clicked to the next slide. This is your current messaging, and this is your primary competitor's messaging. Can you spot the difference? The executives leaned forward, studying the side-by-side comparison. After a moment, one of them shook his head. Exactly. You're indistinguishable, which means buying decisions come down to price or existing relationships. You're leaving money on the table. Claire advanced the slide. What if instead of selling project management software, we sold time, peace of mind, the ability to leave work at 5 p.m. because your systems actually work? She spent the next 45 minutes walking them through a campaign strategy that repositioned Fitzgerald's product from technical solution to life improvement. Testimonials from real users, visual storytelling showing before and after scenarios, a digital strategy that targeted decision makers where they actually spent time, not where marketing textbooks said they should. When she finished, the room was silent. Owen broke it first. Questions?
The chief operating officer raised his hand. This is a complete departure from our current approach. What's the risk? The risk is it might not work, Claire said honestly, but your current approach definitely isn't working. Your market share has been flat for 2 years. This strategy at least gives you a chance to break through the noise. Another executive. Timeline for implementation? 6 weeks to develop all assets. 3 months for full rollout. We'd start with a soft launch, test messaging, adjust based on response data. Budget? Claire named a figure. Reasonable, but not cheap. Quality creative costs money, but it costs less than continuing to be invisible. The executives exchanged glances. Claire felt Owen's eyes on her, but kept her attention on the team. Finally, the CFO nodded. I'm in. This is the first marketing strategy that's made sense in 3 years. Agreement rippled around the table. One by one, the executives voiced support. Owen remained quiet, watching, letting his team drive the decision. When the last person had weighed in, he spoke. Approved. Claire, you have your budget and your timeline. Let's build something remarkable. The meeting dissolved. Executives filed out, several stopping to shake Claire's hand, to ask follow-up questions, to welcome her to the team. When the room finally emptied, only Owen remained. That was extraordinary, he said. That was 3 weeks of barely sleeping and surviving on coffee. It was worth it. He closed his laptop, studied her face. You're a natural at this. I'm guessing you always were. I used to be, before I convinced myself that being supportive meant being silent. Owen's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned. Building security. Someone's asking for you at the front desk. Claire's stomach dropped. Who? A Jason Bennett. Claims he's your husband, demanding to see you. The room felt suddenly smaller. Claire's professional confidence evaporated, replaced by something colder. He found out where I work. Do you want to see him? No, but if I don't, he'll make a scene. Owen's expression hardened. Let him. Security can handle scenes. You don't owe him access to your workplace. Claire's phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. I know you're in there. We need to talk. Now. Then another. Stop hiding behind your new boyfriend's security. Be an adult. Owen moved close enough to read over her shoulder. His jaw tightened. That's manipulation. Classic abuser tactic. Making you feel guilty for protecting yourself. I know what it is. Doesn't make it easier to ignore. Claire, look at me. She did. You don't have to face him. Not here, not now, not ever if you don't want to. This is your space, your workplace.
He doesn't get to invade it because he's having a tantrum. Claire's thought about Jason in the lobby, probably causing a scene, probably making demands. She thought about going down there, about facing him, about the confrontation that had been building for weeks. Then she thought about the presentation she had just delivered, about the executives who had listened to her ideas, about the campaign she was about to build. "Tell security to remove him," she said. "If he refuses to leave, call the police." Owen smiled. Already done. He made a call, spoke quietly, hung up. "Security's escorting him out. If he returns, they'll have him arrested for trespassing." Claire's legs felt suddenly unsteady. She sat down in the nearest chair, wrapped her arms around herself. Owen crouched in front of her, eye level. "You did the right thing." "Then why do I feel like I'm the villain?" "Because he spent years training you to feel that way. But you're not. You're just someone who finally stopped accepting unacceptable behavior." Her phone buzzed again, another message. This isn't over. Claire blocked the number, turned off her phone, and looked at Owen. "I need to get back to work," she said. The courthouse steps were cold beneath Claire's shoes. She stood at the top, watching the morning crowd filter past, lawyers and defendants, and people whose lives were being dismantled or rebuilt in identical beige hallways. Patricia stood beside her, briefcase in hand, dressed in a suit that cost more than Claire's first car. "He's late," Patricia said, checking her watch. Typical power play. Claire said nothing. She had learned that Jason's lateness was never accidental, always strategic. Making people wait was his way of establishing dominance, of reminding everyone that his time mattered more than theirs. A black sedan pulled up to the curb. Jason emerged, followed by his lawyer, a thin man in an expensive suit whose face suggested he knew exactly how guilty his client was and didn't particularly care. Jason looked different, thinner. His suit hung slightly loose on his frame. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. 3 weeks of suspension and criminal investigation had carved away the polish, revealing something harder underneath. His eyes found Claire's across the courthouse steps. She held his gaze, didn't look away, didn't apologize with her body language for existing in his line of sight. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe? Or the dawning realization that the woman he had married no longer existed. They filed into the courthouse separately, went through security, moved into the family court wing. The hallway smelled like stress and broken promises. Claire's heels clicked against linoleum as Patricia guided her to a bench outside courtroom 3. Jason and his lawyer took a position across the hall, close enough to be uncomfortable, far enough to be separate. "Mrs. Bennett?" Jason's lawyer approached, professional smile fixed in place. "Perhaps we could discuss a settlement before going before the judge, save everyone time and money." Patricia's smile was sharper. "We submitted our terms. They're non-negotiable." "Your terms are unreasonable. You're asking for half of everything plus damages. My client is willing to offer the prenup settlement, plus an additional $25,000 in goodwill." "Your client committed adultery and embezzlement. The prenup is void. We're not interested in goodwill. We're interested in justice." The lawyer's smile thinned. "My client maintains his innocence regarding all criminal allegations." "Then he can maintain it in criminal court. This is divorce proceedings. The standard is different." Patricia's voice could have cut glass. "We have documented proof of infidelity spanning 8 months. We have financial records showing marital funds used for his mistress. Your client's best option is to accept our terms and count himself lucky we're not asking for more." The lawyer retreated. Jason stood, crossed the hallway, stopped directly in front of Claire. "Can we talk?" His voice was low, almost gentle. "Alone, just for a minute." Patricia started to object, but Claire touched her arm. "It's fine." They moved down the hallway, stopped near a window overlooking the parking lot. Jason ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she had seen 1,000 times. This time, it looked desperate. "This is insane, Claire. You're destroying everything over a mistake." 8 months isn't a mistake. It's a choice you made repeatedly. "I was confused. Vivian, she pursued me, and I was weak. But I love you. I want to fix this." His voice cracked.
Please, we can go to counseling, work this out. You don't have to do this." Claire looked at him, really looked at him. She searched for the man she had married 5 years ago, the one who had promised forever. All she saw was a stranger who wore his face. "You used our joint accounts to steal from your company," she said quietly. "You framed an innocent man. You made me complicit without my knowledge. And now you're asking me to forgive that? I never meant for you to be involved. But I am involved because you made sure of it. Insurance policy, right? If things went wrong, you could claim I knew, drag me down with you." Jason's face paled. "That's not, I wouldn't." "Yes, you would. You already did." Claire's voice remained steady, calm. She felt nothing looking at him. No anger, no sadness, just a vast emptiness where 5 years of marriage used to live. "I hope you get help, Jason. Genuinely. I hope you figure out whatever's broken inside you that made you think any of this was acceptable, but I'm not staying to watch. If you do this, you get nothing. My assets are frozen, under investigation. There's nothing left to take. I don't want your stolen money. I want a divorce." His expression shifted. The gentle pleading evaporated, replaced by something colder. "You think you're better than me now because you got some consulting job? You're nothing without me, Claire. You were nothing before me." There it was, the truth that lived under all the pretty words. "You're right," she said. "I was nothing before you, because I made myself nothing to fit into your life. But I'm remembering how to be something again, and it turns out I'm pretty good at it. That CEO, Fitzgerald, you're sleeping with him. That's what this is really about." Claire smiled, not a happy smile, a smile that said she was done explaining herself. "Believe whatever helps you sleep at night, Jason. I'm done caring what you think." She turned and walked back to Patricia, who stood with arms crossed, watching Jason like he was something unpleasant she had stepped in. "Everything okay?" Patricia asked quietly. "Everything's perfect." The courtroom doors opened. A bailiff called their case number. They filed in, took their positions at separate tables. The judge, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and eyes that suggested she had seen every manipulation tactic ever invented, reviewed the files before her. "Bennett versus Bennett, petition for divorce." She looked up. "I've reviewed both filings. Mr. Bennett, your counsel is arguing the prenuptial agreement should stand. Mrs. Bennett, your counsel argues it should be voided due to infidelity and criminal activity. Is that correct?" Both lawyers confirmed. The judge turned to Jason. "Mr. Bennett, are you currently under criminal investigation by your employer?" Jason's lawyer stood. "My client invokes his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination." "That's a yes," the judge made a note. "Mrs. Bennett, you've submitted evidence of infidelity. Mr. Bennett, do you contest this evidence?" Jason's lawyer hesitated. "We acknowledge the relationship, but argue it's not sufficient grounds to void a legally binding prenuptial agreement. The prenup includes a fidelity clause, page 7, section 3. In the event of proven infidelity, all provisions are nullified." The judge flipped through the document, found the clause, read it. Her expression didn't change, but something in her eyes suggested satisfaction. "So it does." She looked at Jason's lawyer. "Counselor, your client signed a prenup with a fidelity clause and then violated that clause. On what grounds are you arguing it should still be enforced?" The lawyer fumbled. "The clause is, in our opinion, overly broad and potentially unenforceable. You should have argued that before your client committed adultery." The judge closed the file. "Here's my ruling. The prenuptial agreement is void. All marital assets will be divided according to state law. 50-50 split of all legitimate assets. Mr. Bennett, any assets currently frozen or under investigation are excluded from division pending resolution of criminal proceedings." Jason's face went white. "Mrs. Bennett is awarded the marital home, half of all joint accounts not implicated in criminal activity, and one of the 2 vehicles, registered in both names.
Mr. Bennett retains the other vehicle and his personal effects. Both parties are responsible for their own legal fees. She looked at Jason over her reading glasses. Mr. Bennett, you have 30 days to vacate the marital home. Any questions? Jason's lawyer started to speak, but the judge cut him off. That was rhetorical. Ruling stands. Divorce is granted. Papers will be finalized within 10 business days. She banged her gavel. Next case. It was over. 5 years of marriage dissolved in 15 minutes. Claire stood, legs somehow steady, and walked out of the courtroom. Patricia followed, professional satisfaction radiating from her like heat. In the hallway, Jason caught up to them. "You're really doing this," he said. Not a question, a realization. "I'll appeal, fight the ruling. You won't get away with this." "Mr. Bennett," Patricia's voice was ice. "If you continue to harass my client, we'll file for a restraining order. I suggest you focus on your criminal defense and leave Mrs. Bennett alone." They left him standing in the courthouse hallway, looking smaller than Claire had ever seen him. Outside, the autumn air felt impossibly clean. Claire stood on the courthouse steps, tilted her face toward the sun, and breathed. "How do you feel?" Patricia asked. "Light, like I've been carrying something heavy for years and just put it down." Her phone rang. Owen. "How did it go?" he asked when she answered. "Divorce granted. I got the house." "Congratulations. Are you okay?" Claire looked at the courthouse behind her, at the building where her marriage had officially ended. "I'm better than okay.
I'm free." "Then we're celebrating. Office happy hour tonight. Team's been asking about you. Nina's invited too." "Owen, you don't have to." "I'm not doing anything. The team wants to celebrate landing a marketing genius. That genius happens to be you. 7 p.m. rooftop bar near the office. Be there." He hung up before she could argue. Patricia smiled. "That man is persistent. That man is my boss. That man is half in love with you and trying very hard to be professional about it." Claire felt heat creep up her neck. "I just got divorced 3 minutes ago." "I'm aware. I was there." Patricia squeezed her shoulder. "I'm not saying do anything about it. I'm saying be aware it's there. When you're ready, if you're ever ready, that's an option." They walked to the parking lot together. Claire's old sedan sat where she had left it, beside Patricia's luxury vehicle. Soon she would have the house, half the savings, a real career. Soon she would have the space to figure out who Claire Bennett was when she wasn't performing for someone else's expectations. Her phone buzzed. A message from Nina. "I hear we're celebrating tonight. I'm buying the first round. You're buying the second. We're both buying the third because we're adults with jobs, and that's what adults with jobs do." Claire smiled, typed back a response, and drove toward her future. In her rearview mirror, the courthouse grew smaller, then disappeared completely. 6 months changed everything. Claire stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her apartment, coffee in hand, watching the city wake up beneath a sky painted pink and gold. Her apartment, her name on the lease, her furniture chosen deliberately, her walls decorated with art she actually liked. Behind her, the space reflected 6 months of careful rebuilding. A desk in the corner held her laptop and campaign materials. Bookshelves lined one wall, filled with marketing texts and novels she had rediscovered. An easel stood near the window, a half-finished painting catching the morning light. She had forgotten she used to paint. Jason had called it a waste of time, and slowly, quietly, she had stopped. Now she painted on Sunday mornings, terrible abstract pieces that made her happy in a way she couldn't quite articulate. Her phone buzzed. Nina. "Big day. You ready to destroy that presentation?" Claire smiled. "Born ready." Today was the campaign launch presentation to international investors. 3 months of work culminating in one crucial pitch that would determine Fitzgerald Innovations' market expansion. Claire had spent weeks refining every detail, testing every message, preparing for every possible question. She was terrified and exhilarated and exactly where she was supposed to be. An hour later, she walked into Fitzgerald's headquarters in a navy suit that fit perfectly because she had bought it herself with money she had earned. The security guard greeted her by name.
The receptionist waved. People knew her here, respected her work, valued her contributions. Owen met her at the elevator, 2 coffee cups in hand. Thought you might need this. You're a mind reader. I'm someone who's watched you survive on caffeine for 3 months. He handed her the cup, studied her face. You look calm. I'm excellent at looking calm. Inside, I'm screaming. Inside, you're brilliant. The investors are going to love this. They rode the elevator to the executive floor in comfortable silence. 6 months of working together had created an easy rhythm, professional boundaries carefully maintained, even as something else simmered underneath. Claire felt it, the way Owen's attention focused completely when she spoke, the way his eyes followed her across conference rooms, the way he found excuses to stop by her office, to ask opinions on things that had nothing to do with marketing. She felt it, and she carefully didn't acknowledge it, because she was still figuring out who she was outside of being someone's wife. But she felt it. The conference room filled quickly. International investors, Fitzgerald executives, the development team whose product she had been selling. Owen took his position at the head of the table, gestured for Claire to begin. She stood, connected her laptop, and launched into the presentation that would define her career resurrection. 45 minutes later, the investors were leaning forward, asking questions that suggested genuine interest rather than polite obligation. The campaign had exceeded projections, driven unprecedented engagement, positioned Fitzgerald as a market leader instead of a technical also-ran. Claire fielded questions with the confidence of someone who knew her material inside and out. When the lead investor asked about scalability, she had projections. When another questioned cultural adaptation for international markets, she had region-specific strategies already developed. When the presentation ended, applause filled the conference room. The lead investor, a woman in her 50s who had built her own empire, approached Claire directly. That was exceptional. Are you available for consultation on other projects? Claire glanced at Owen, who nodded almost imperceptibly. I'm currently exclusive to Fitzgerald Innovations, Claire said, but I appreciate the interest. If that ever changes, call me. The woman handed her a card. Talent like yours shouldn't be limited to one company. When the investors finally left, Owen caught Claire's eye across the room and tilted his head toward the hallway. She followed him to his office, closed the door behind them. That was extraordinary, he said. You just secured $15 million in international expansion funding. The board's ecstatic. We secured it. This was a team effort. Claire, stop deflecting credit you earned. You transformed this company's market position in 6 months. Own that. She smiled, felt pride settle warm in her chest. Okay, I was pretty brilliant. You were stunning. Owen's expression shifted into something more serious, which is why I need to offer you something officially. Chief Marketing Officer, full equity package, corner office, seat at the executive table. The board approved it unanimously. Claire's coffee cup paused halfway to her lips. CMO? You've been doing the job anyway. Might as well have the title and compensation that matches. He named a salary that made her earlier consulting fee look modest. Say yes, please, before another company poaches you. Yes, the word came out before she could overthink it. Absolutely yes. Owen's smile was genuine, reaching his eyes. Good, because I wasn't prepared to lose you. The words hung between them, carrying weight that had nothing to do with working today.
Or do with business. Claire's phone buzzed, shattering the moment. Building security. Ms. Bennett, there's a Jason Bennett here requesting to see you. Should we allow access? Her stomach tightened. 6 months, and Jason had mostly stayed away. Occasional angry messages that she deleted without reading. One attempt to contest the divorce that his lawyer quickly abandoned when Patricia threatened to file additional motions. But he had never shown up at Fitzgerald again. No, she said into the phone. Please ask him to leave. He says it's urgent, that he needs 5 minutes. Claire looked at Owen, who had gone very still. Your call, he said quietly, but you don't owe him anything. She thought about the woman she had been 6 months ago, afraid to make waves, terrified of conflict, shrinking herself to avoid confrontation. That woman would have gone downstairs, would have given him 5 minutes, would have listened to whatever manipulation he had prepared, but that woman didn't exist anymore. If he refuses to leave, call the police, Claire said. I'm not coming down. She hung up. Owen's expression held approval and something fiercer. Protection, maybe? He's not going to stop showing up. Then I'll keep not seeing him. Claire set down her coffee. I spent 5 years letting him control my time, my space, my life. I'm done. Her phone rang again. Different number. She answered warily. Ms. Bennett, this is Detective Morrison with the Financial Crimes Unit. I'm calling about the Jason Bennett case. Claire's heart rate kicked up. Yes? I wanted to inform you that Mr. Bennett has accepted a plea deal. 18 months in minimum security, 5 years probation, full restitution to his former employer. He'll be sentenced next week. And Philip Warren, the man he tried to frame? Fully exonerated. Actually got promoted. Turns out he's quite good at his job when he's not being sabotaged. The detective paused. Your tip saved that man's career, possibly his life. Thought you should know that. Claire closed her eyes. Thank you for telling me. You did the right thing. Not everyone would have. When she hung up, Owen was watching her with quiet intensity. Jason's going to prison, she said. 18 months. How do you feel about that? Claire thought about the question, searched herself for guilt or satisfaction or vindication, found only a distant sadness for the man Jason might have been if he had made different choices. I feel nothing, she admitted. Is that terrible? It's honest. You're allowed to feel nothing about someone who spent years making you feel like nothing. A knock on the door interrupted them. Rebecca poked her head in. Sorry to interrupt, but the executive team wants to celebrate. They're heading to that new place downtown. Claire, they specifically requested you join. Go, Owen said. Celebrate. You earned this. Claire gathered her things, paused at the door. Are you coming? I have calls to make, investors to follow up with. His smile was slightly strained. I'll catch up later. She left him in his office, joined the executive team in the lobby. They swept her into celebration, into laughter and congratulations and the easy camaraderie of people who respected each other's work. But part of her mind stayed in Owen's office, on the thing he hadn't said, on the careful distance he maintained. 3 hours later, pleasantly buzzed on champagne and success, Claire returned to her apartment. The space welcomed her, familiar and entirely hers. She kicked off her heels, changed into comfortable clothes, and stood at her easel. The painting was abstract, colors bleeding into each other, creating something that looked like chaos organizing itself into meaning. She picked up a brush, added strokes of gold to the canvas, and let her mind wander. 6 months ago, she had signed divorce papers with a steady hand and driven away in Owen Fitzgerald's car. Not because she was running to him, but because she was running toward herself. And she had found herself, in presentations that challenged her, in work that fulfilled her, in friendships that supported rather than diminished, in the quiet moments alone in her apartment, content in her own company. Her phone buzzed. Owen, I know it's late, but I need to ask you something. Can I call? Claire's heart kicked. Yes. He called. She answered. I've been professional for 6 months, he said without preamble. Careful, appropriate, giving you space to heal and grow and figure out who you are outside of that marriage. You have. But Claire, I need to tell you something, and if it's too soon or unwanted, say so, and I'll never mention it again. She sat down on her couch, pulse racing. Okay. I've been half in love with you since you beat me in that competition 7 years ago. I was fully in love with you by your 2nd week working here. And watching you rebuild yourself these past 6 months has been the most extraordinary privilege of my life. He paused, and she heard him exhale. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed you to know that when you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'm here. Claire closed her eyes, felt tears slip down her cheeks. Not sad tears, something else entirely. I have a question, she said. Anything. Why me? Really? Why do you see me when everyone else just saw Jason's wife? Because brilliance recognizes brilliance. Because I remember the woman who stayed up all night helping a competitor improve his pitch and asked for nothing in return. Because you're kind despite having every reason not to be. Because when you smile, really smile, everything makes sense. His voice softened. Because you're Claire Bennett,
and that's always been more than enough. Claire looked at her reflection in the darkened window. The woman looking back was strong, whole, taking up exactly as much space as she deserved. Owen, pick me up at 7 on Saturday. Silence, then quietly, yes, yes, dinner. Not as colleagues, not as friends, something more. I'll be there at 7. She hung up, set down her phone, and returned to her painting. She added more gold, watched the colors transform under her brush, creating something new from the chaos. Behind her, a box sat on her closet shelf. Her wedding photo, Jason's gifts, remnants of a life that no longer fit. Tomorrow, she would donate it all. Tonight, she stood in her apartment, paint on her fingers, champagne buzz fading into contentment, and looked toward a future full of possibility. She had signed divorce papers with a smile and driven off in the CEO's car, not because she needed saving, but because she had finally saved herself, and that made all the difference.